Good morning, teacher and everyone. My name is Honsina. My major is Finance and Banking at the Tony Fernandez School of Business. Today, I would like to present to all of you about one topic, that is Cambodia in Khmer regime 1975 until 1979. So now please look at the contents. We have introduction, leadership, the great leap forward politics in democratic Cambodia, Cambodia genocide, and the declining of Khmer regime Pol Pot. 1. Introduction. The Communist Party of Cambodia, or we can call CPK, otherwise known as the Khmer, took control of Cambodia on April 17 in 1975. The CPK created the state of Democratic Cambodia in 1976 and ruled the country until January 1979. The party's existence was kept secret until 1977, and no one outside the CPK knew who its leaders were. The leaders just called themselves Angka Padiwat. In March 1970, Marshal Lionel, a Cambodian politician who had previously served as Prime Minister, and his pro-American associates staged a successful coup to depose Prince Sihanouk as head of state. At this time, the Khmer had gained members and was positioned to become a major player in the civil war, thus to its alliance with Sihanouk. Their army was led by Pol Pot, who was appointed CPK's party secretary and leader in 1963. Pol Pot, born in Cambodia as Salot Saw, spent time in France and became a member of the French Communist Party. Upon returning to Cambodia in 1953, he joined a clandestine communist movement and began his rise up the ranks to be one of the world's most infamous dictators. From January to August in 1973, the Khmer Republic government, with assistance from the US, dropped about 500,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia, which may have killed as many as 300,000 people. Many who resented the bombings or had lost family members joined the Khmer Revolution. By early 1973, about 85% of Cambodian territory was in the hands of the Khmer, and the Lionel army was almost unable to go to the offensive. However, with US assistance, it was able to continue fighting the Khmer for 2 more years. In April 1975 ended 5 years of foreign interventions, bombardment, and civil war in Cambodia. On this date, Phnom Penh, a major city in Cambodia, fell to the communist force. 2. Leadership. The Khmer Rouge came to power in 1975. During June 1974, Khmer Rouge leaders met in Kampong Chhnang to discuss plans to invade Phnom Penh. At the time, the entrance to Phnom Penh was cut off. Transportation from Phnom Penh is only possible by water and air. In early 1975, waterway traffic was also cut off as the Khmer Rouge deployed anti-ship mines along Mekong River, transporting food into Phnom Penh to supply up to 2 million people is only possible by air. Seeing such favorable conditions, Salotso ordered all Khmer Rouge commanders to be ready to launch an offensive to seize occupy Phnom Penh. In early April 1975, Khmer Rouge soldiers began shelling Phnom Penh airport. Crossing transport air transport to and from Phnom Penh has also been cut off. On April 12, officials and staff at the U.S. Embassy in Phnom Penh left Cambodia by helicopter. As for Lon Nol and his family, they left Phnom Penh on April 1st. On April 13, Po Chun Tong International Airport fell into the hands of Khmer Rouge soldiers. 2 days later, Khmer Rouge soldiers in the as captured Takmau. Phnom Penh's defensive belt also collapsed. April 17, great success, men and women left the city to enter the rice field. In the morning of April 17, at around 8:30 a.m., some senior officials of the government of the Republic of Cambodia gathered at the National Olympic Stadium in plans to leave Phnom Penh by helicopter, but only a handful of leaders have fled Phnom Penh. A large number of leaders, including Prime Minister Long Boren, were captured and killed by Khmer Rouge soldiers. Princess Sisawat Seremeta, who refused to leave the country, was also killed by the Khmer Rouge that day. At around 11 a.m. on April 17, 1975, Khmer Rouge soldiers occupied Phnom Penh. Under the congratulation of the people who lived there, but soon the joy of victory, the joy of the hope that the war was over, faded after that. Khmer Rouge soldiers began to force people to leave Phnom Penh immediately. Those who refused to comply were shot dead by Khmer Rouge soldiers. April 17, 1975, the Khmer Republic was completely overthrown by a new regime led by the Communist Party of Cambodia, or the Khmer Rouge. So now please look at the majestic 8-point plan of Khmer Rouge. According to Raoul Jenner, between May 20 and 25, 1975, Pol Pot and Nuon Chea announced 8 key policies. These policies include: number 1, evacuation of people from the city, and the population is divided into 2 categories: people living in the area. Liberation before April 17, dubbed the old people, and people who have just been evacuated from the city after April 17, named the new people or 17 April. 2. Complete elimination of the free market economy. 3. Eliminate spending. 4. All monks must be decapitated and sent to work in the field. 5. Kill all officials who work for the colonial regime. 6. Establish cooperative throughout the country. 7. Expel all Vietnamese from Cambodia. 8. Deploy troops along the border, especially the Vietnam border. For the structure of the Communist Party of Cambodia be divided into 2 parts. First is standing committee, have 5 members. There are Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary, Sao Phum, Von Wait. And the party central committee have 10 members. There are Pol Pot, Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary, Sao Phum, Von Wait, Son Sen, Chet Chưn, Khol Tam Mok, Khe Sompon, Nhâm Ruah, and Kai Po. 1976 Democratic Cambodia. On January 5, 1976, a new constitution with 21 articles divided into 16 chapters is officially promulgated. Cambodia was officially renamed Democratic Cambodia. The new constitution also stipulates the establishment of a 250-seat lower house. This includes 150 seats representing the peasantry, 50 seats representing the working class, and another 50 seats representing the Cambodian Revolutionary Army. The flag of Democratic Cambodia has a red background and yellow top, 3 temples in the center. National symbols include falls and fields and canal systems as a symbol of advanced agriculture. Factories as a symbol of industry, surrounded by buffalo horns from the outside. There is the words Democratic Cambodia at the bottom, as you can see in the picture. The new national anthem written by Pol Pot is entitled April 17, Great Success. Samdech Norodom Sihanouk resigned as head of state in early March 1976. Samdech Norodom Sihanouk resigned as head of state on the grounds that he has a health problem. March 20, a national election is held to elect members of parliament, Salotso under the new name Pol Pot was elected to represent rubber plantation workers. Banot, the Prime Minister of the Royal Government of National Unity of Cambodia, resigned on April 6, 1976. The Royal Government of National Unity of Cambodia has since lost its name. 3. The Great Leap Forward Politics in Democratic Cambodia. 1 is politics and economic. Once in power, Pol Pot began a radical experiment to create an alliance inspired in part by Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, which he had witnessed firsthand during a visit to Communist China. Mao's Great Leap Forward economic program include forced evacuations of China cities and the purging of class enemies. Pol Pot would now attempt his own super Great Leap Forward in Cambodia, which he renamed the Democratic Republic of Cambodia. He began by declaring this is year zero and that society was about to be purified. Capitalism, Western culture, city life, religion, and all foreign influence were to be extinguished in favor of an extreme form of peasant communism. Number 2. Life in Cambodia under the Khmer regime. A few days after they took power in 1975, the Khmer forced perhaps 2 million people in Cambodia and other cities into the countryside to undertake agricultural work. Thousands of people died during the evacuations. To accomplish this, they abolished money, free markets, normal schooling, private property, foreign clothing style, religious practice, and traditional Khmer culture. Public school, pagoda, church, university, shop, and government buildings were shut or turned into prison stables, re-education camps, and granaries. There was no public or private transportation, no private property, and no non-revolutionary entertainment. Family relationship ethnic groups were attacked, including the 3 largest minorities, the Vietnamese, Chinese, and Cham Muslims, along with 20 other smaller groups. 50% of the estimated 425,000 Chinese living in Cambodia in 1975 perished. Khmer also forced Muslims to eat pork and shot those who refused. During this time, everyone was deprived of their basic rights. People were not allowed to go outside their cooperative the regime would not allow anyone to gather and hold discussion. If three people gather and talk, they could be accused of being enemies and arrested or executed. Family relationships were also heavily citizen. People were forbidden to show even the slightest affection, humor, or pity. The Khmer asked all Cambodians to believe, obey, and respect only Angka Padiwot, which was to be everyone's mother and father. 3. Education and health. The Khmer saw that traditional education and hostility did not merge after the fall of Phnom Penh. The exhausted thousands of teachers, those who were former educators until 1975, lived by hiding their identities. 4. Religious communities. Many monks were exhausted, pagodas were destroyed or turned into warehouses or prisons. Statues of the Buddhas were destroyed and thrown into rivers and lakes. People who were found praying or expressing religious sentiments were killed. The Christian and Muslim communities were also further persecuted, at which point they were categorized as part of Western secularism, which was hindering Cambodian culture and society. 4. Cambodian genocide. Workers on the farm collective established by Pol Pot soon began suffering from the effect of overwork and lack of food. Hundreds of thousands died from disease, starvation, or damage to their bodies sustained during backbreaking work or abuse from the ruthless Khmer guide overseeing the camps. Pol Pot regime also exhausted thousands of people. It had them as enemies of the state, those seen as intellectual or potential leaders of a revolutionary movement were also exhausted. During what became known as the Cambodian genocide, an estimated 1.7 to 2.2 million Cambodians died during Pol Pot's time in charge of the country. Those Line Genocide Museum or Security Department S21 or SAW 21. Those Line Genocide Museum is the memorial seat of Security of Office 21 of Democratic Cambodia, also known as the Khmer regime, and located in what was then the abandoned city of Phnom Penh, whose citizens had been evacuated on 17 April 1975. S21 served as the central hub of a West prison system throughout the country and was used throughout the period as a secret facility for the detention, interrogation, torture, and extermination of those deemed political enemies of the regime, thus to a policy of guilt by association. At times, whole families were detained at the center. Very few inmates were released out of the prison. During the years 1975 and 1979, only 12 former inmates suffered the opening of S-21 when Phnom Penh was liberated. 4 of them were children. The declining of Khmer Rouge regime, Pol Pot. The reason of declining of Khmer Rouge regime is Cambodian had Khmer Rouge regime. The practice of brutal politics against its own people result in democratic Cambodia becoming a regime with no popular support at all, having war with Vietnam Army. On January 3rd, when Vietnamese troops invaded Stung Treng, Ieng Sary requested that the UN Security Council convene an emergency meeting to prevent Vietnamese aggression. A day later, on January 4, the entire east bank of the Mekong River fell to the Vietnamese. On January 5, Vietnamese troops stormed the Nha Leung ferry port, while another group from Ha Tieng also stormed Ta Keo province. In Mae Mot district, Kampong Cham province, the United Front of National Salvation of Cambodia held again a general assembly and decided to re-establish the Khmer Revolutionary People's Party with Mr. Pan Suvan as the general secretary of the party. On the same day, Samdech Norodom Sihanouk was brought back to Phnom Penh by the Khmer Rouge and was taken to meet with Pol Pot. During the meeting, Pol Pot asked Samdech Norodom Sihanouk to come forward as a representative of democratic Cambodia to persuade the international community to oppose the Vietnamese aggression. He agreed to the request and left Phnom Penh on January 6 for China to hold a press conference up to 6 hours in Beijing. Leaving Beijing, he traveled to New York to attend a UN meeting as a representative of democratic Cambodia. The end. In Cambodia, in the morning of January 7 in 1979, the last remaining Khmer Rouge cadres and senior leaders were leaving Phnom Penh by train heading northwest. Hours later, Vietnamese troops and the Cambodia United Front for National Salvation invaded invited invaded Phnom Penh, and the Democratic Cambodia regime was 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days old, also collapsed completely. So now that is all of my presentation. Thank you so much for watching my video presentation.